So much like yesterday, here is a graph of a proportional relationship, proportional because we know it's a line, and it passes through the origin. And to find the unit rate, much like we did yesterday, we're going to look at when the x-axis value is 1, because a unit rate is when the x value has a quantity of 1. So if I highlight that line right here, just like we did yesterday, we can then go find where the line meets that value of 1. Little point right there for x. And if I go to the left, we would say that the unit rate for this first graph, the unit rate would be 1. And then similarly for the second one, again, here's that x value of 1. We'll follow that line. We'll go find where we actually have the line crossing that point, which is right there. Again, we'll go to the left, and we would say the unit rate for this one would be 5. And that's all fine and good, except we get something that looks more like this. Because here, when I go and I highlight that x value of 1 line, we can see where the line is. The problem is, oh, sorry, wrong thing. The problem is that when we go to the left, over here, we don't know what the value is. So there's a couple of different ways that we can do that. Same thing with the one over here on the right. If I highlight again that 1 line right here, go back here since I lost that. We can see where our line is. We just, again, don't know the value. So the first version works great when it's sort of clean in the sense that as the line hits that value of 1, we can look to the left, we can see a clear value. But we need a backup plan. There's a couple that we can have here. One, we go find a point that actually would sit square on a value. So like, for instance, this point right here, I can tell that the x value is 5 and the y value is 2. And if we write it like this as an ordered pair, you might remember yesterday, what we would do with those values is we would divide them. So I would say 5 divided by 2, which can also be written as 5 using our fraction bar 2. And if I do that and I divide, I would get a value that should help me find my unit rate. Instead of doing all that, there's a little bit of a better way. And this is what you're going to practice, say, on the small delta math assignment that we have. So the one thing that you have to be careful is when you look at this line, and this line is not proportional, which is why this method works for everything and not just proportional relationships like the version that we were just doing. So nice to have something that works all the time and not just part of the time. When you're looking at a graph, pardon me, we need to go find points again that are I call them clean in the sense that when we look at where the line is, it's going to be able to give us value. So I'm going to kind of mark the clean points here as I travel from left to right down this line. Right here is a clean point because if I look at that point, I know that the x value is -1 and the y value is 7. It's on that kind of grid line, right, where it's a perfect kind of sit on the grid line. As I keep coming down, I'm going to get to another one right by here. Because again, the x value is 4 and the y value is 3. It sits right on those perfectly gray grid lines. And then it looks like we have one more a little bit further down. Right there again, x value is 9, y value is -1. So I'm just kind of marking them. You don't have to do this. They're not going to be there on the delta, but this way you can kind of see the idea of what we're trying to do here. So I'm going to go and draw what we call a slope triangle. We know triangles. It's actually going to be a right triangle. It's going to have a leg gonna have another leg. So a vertical leg, a horizontal leg, and then the hypotenuse. Well, the blue line that's drawn is gonna like already signify my hypotenuse. So I can start at any one of these green dots. I'm gonna start the one furthest up the line here on the left-hand side. And what I want to do is I want to draw the two legs of the triangle to basically connect two of the green points. So for instance, if I do this and start coming down, I'm going to come all the way down until I'm even with that green point on the right. And then I'm going to come over here to the right and I have my triangle here. And now what I'm going to do is I want to find out how long, I want to label how long each leg is. So this vertical leg is at 3 right here. And then it goes to 7. So I know that it's going to have a length of 4. You can also just kind of count your boxes if you want. And then the horizontal is at -1. and goes to 4. If I subtract those, which I could, or just count the boxes, and I have 5. Well, to find my unit rate, the unit rate is how we compare the two values, how the y value, which is our vertical value, is compared to our x value. So when we divide, we use the fraction bar. We're not actually going to divide anymore. We're just going to leave it as a fraction. So I would just say here that my ratio or the slope is what we call this thing would just be 4/5. And I would just leave it as that. One thing, it doesn't matter which green dots you use. I can go back, or they're green here, they're not going to be green other places, but I can go back and draw a triangle here using those two green dots. And again, if I look, that's going to be a 4 and that's going to be a 5. So I get the same thing. And even if I just kind of went real big or I just missed that point in the middle, I didn't really see it there. If I come all the way down here and then I come all the way over to this one, if I look and I see the difference here, this is 8 and this is 10. I would write it as 8/10. The one thing you want to make sure that you do, and listen to this piece, is you want to take your fraction, you want to put it in your calculator. So I would take 8/10, I would type it in my calculator as a fraction, and when I hit enter, it's going to simplify it for me. It would still be the result of 4/5. So practice these today, and this delta is going to actually prompt you to draw these lines, work through it, but just make sure that when you get your fraction, that you're going to put it in your calculator and simplify it. And the one main thing to remember is that it's your vertical line. The y value is on top of the fraction, and the x value is on the bottom. The y value is that up or down value, and the x value is that horizontal value. Good luck. We'll talk when I get back.